Hello everyone, welcome to another video, welcome to another GT Sport opinion piece, and in this video I'm going to give you 4 instant fixes I believe Polyphony Digital could implement into the game very quickly to improve the experience of GT Sport. So GT Sport is now 3 years old on PlayStation 4, and it's fair to say that over that time span it has received a great many updates. Lots of new cars have been added to the game, lots of new tracks, lots of new features in regards to single player content, and they've sort of changed some things for the better, changed some things for the worse, and then they've changed them back. And a couple of the sort of features we're going to look at are going to be instances of that, where they've sort of changed it one way, changed it back, and maybe changed it again, and not necessarily for the better. However, despite all that, I have to say that Gran Turismo Sport is my favourite racing game on any platform, including PC. I think just in terms of accessibility, its sort of structure and how easy it is to get into competitive races, its player base, things like that, I think it's unrivaled in the sort of racing simulation market. Definitely on console, but I think it gives the best games on PC a run for their money as well in that regard. However, PlayStation 5 looms large on the horizon, and with GT7 rumoured to be released probably in the first 6 months of that console's life cycle, it's fair to say that GT Sport is possibly coming to the end of its life, and maybe in the next 6 months we're going to be playing a new Gran Turismo game. So what could Polyphony Digital do to GT Sport in those 6 months just to keep things a little bit fresh, keep things relevant, and just keep the player base engaged until the new game arrives? So the purpose of this video, we're going to look at 4 things that I believe they could do to sort of keep the player base engaged. And the first thing we're going to look at is a GT Sport perennial bugbear, and that is the slipstream, and in particular the strength. So in the last update on the 16th of July, they reduced the distance that the slipstream is picked up from 1.5 seconds down to 0.7 of a second, but they also increased the strength back to pre-update 1.57, which is probably a little bit too strong in my opinion. It looks like it's around about 33% of a difference in terms of strength. That's a very rough calculation, but let's see how that manifests in the game. So looking here at the current slipstream, the current strength that is, we're in the Porsche, coming out the last corner of Interlagos, and we're in the slipstream of a Hyundai. Now the Porsche is not a great car in a straight line, and the Hyundai is certainly no slouch in a straight line, but you can see just how easily the Porsche is able to sort of close that distance in the slipstream and make the overtake inevitable into turn number 1. It does outbrake itself, but it was the Hyundai really had no chance of defending that, such as the pull of the slipstream. So let's take a look at what the slipstream was like in terms of strength before that latest update on the 16th of July. Now the slipstream still was a 1.5 second distance in this example, but we're well within that, we're well within 0.7 here, so it's a relevant comparison. So we're in the Porsche again, Interlagos, slipstream of an Alfa Romeo in front. Now you can see that we're managing to close up just a little bit, but we're getting nowhere near to make the overtake inevitable into turn number 1. What it does allow us to do though is just get close enough to the Alfa Romeo to get a slightly better exit out of turn number 3 here. We're in the slipstream as we head down to turn number 4, and it's going to kind of just give us that opportunity to go for the overtake. But you can see it was a much reduced strength. The Porsche came nowhere near to overtaking the Alfa Romeo like it did the Hyundai, and I think going back to that strength, keeping it at 0.7 of a second would be much better for the game. So instant fix number 2 on the list is longer pit stop times. So way back in update 1.4 something, they changed the pit stop times in sport mode to match those of the offline mode, and what this did was significantly reduce the time that cars spend in the pits in sport mode. So we're going to go to a split screen here. We'll kind of show you just how different it is. So on the left hand side we've got the current pit stop time, and on the right hand side we've got what the pit stops used to be like way back before they changed it for that update. And what you're going to see here is that it's significantly longer, or significantly shorter now than what it used to be. Now I understand why they did this. It was to bring in strategy, make the sort of pit stop strategies more relevant against the no stops, but that was before they brought in mandatory tyres. I think now we've got the mandatory tyres where you're kind of now required to run 2 different compounds. I think we could go back to the old pit stops. It would kind of make things a little bit more realistic. You know, cars would be spending 15, 16, 20 seconds in the pits rather than, in some cases, 5 seconds. but more like 7 or 8 seconds for a lot of tracks. So I just think that would be something that was just make things a little bit more strategic now with the mandatory tyres. Fix number 3 is some new tracks. Well, it's probably a bit late in the game's life cycle to really get any new fresh track, but what they could do is maybe give us some alternative versions of the tracks we've already got in the game. There is plenty of tracks in Gran Turismo. You can see it's a fairly substantial track list, many of which have got many variations. One track that doesn't have any variations is at Barcelona, and it really should do, because if we look at some of the corners here, there is plenty of rendered track that would require very little work from the team at PD just to give us some alternative versions of this circuit. So we're looking at turn 8 here, we're now at turn 9, which is the old Formula 1 track from the 90s, and finally we've got the chicane complex where we could kind of use again the old Formula 1 track that's just the fast right hand corners there, or some other sequence through this part of the track, but you could very easily get some alternative layouts at Barcelona. Now they do this in some of the other tracks. We've got Fuji in front of us, so you've got the original layout there, just Fuji International Speedway, and then we've got the short version, and really all the short version does is miss out the chicane, but it does give the circuit a little bit of a different character. Now I think this is something that they could probably implement on some other tracks of the game. So for example, we've got Interlagos here, we've got this little chicane on the run up to the hill. I see no reason why we couldn't get an alternative version of Interlagos that could incorporate this little chicane, give the track a little bit of a different character. It could sort of take this philosophy into all the tracks in the game, get some alternative versions in there, just freshen up the track list for FIA and Daily Race C, or A, B and C, to be perfectly honest with you. And I think this would be a very easy fix for PD to put in and improve the game. So instant fix number 4, we've got practice race conditions. So what do we mean by that? Well, right now when you load into a Daily Race C or an FIA race, it takes you into this screen here where you've got the countdown until the lobby opens. Now from this screen you can go out onto track and drive the car, but unfortunately the only way you can drive the car is in time trial conditions, whereas when you're about to go into the race you're going to have whatever tyre and fuel multipliers have been set for that race. And unfortunately this also means you're now driving the car in a sort of different kind of characteristic as to what you're about to go racing with. So I think a simple toggle in this sort of section here where you could sort of go between qualifying, time trial and race conditions where you're kind of running with the tyre wear and fuel that you're going to be running in the race would be a significant improvement to the game. And I think it would actually go a long way to reducing some of the instances you see on turn number 1. Now, this does seem to be something they did intend to implement into the game here. In update 1.57 we have this here. I'll just read it out. To coincide with the implementation of tyre wear and fuel consumption in the qualifying, tyre wear and fuel consumption can now be enabled during free practice and in the pit stop during a warm-up. Now, this did not seem to ever manifest itself in the game as far as I'm concerned, but I think it would be, as I said, a very significant improvement to the game. Help to reduce some turn 1 instances, because people will, I think they go from time trial into race conditions and they don't realise that the car's going to sort of be a bit heavier with the fuel, tyres are going to be a bit colder and braking distances, etc. Things like that all change just a little bit. Anyway, that is 4 instant fixes I believe PD could implement into Gran Turismo Sport over this closing 6 months of its life to sort of significantly improve the gaming experience. In a couple of aspects there, it would improve the racing as far as I'm concerned with the changes to the slipstream and the pit stops, and freshen things up with the implementation of some alternative track layouts. Now I was going to fire some other things in here, things like sort of changing up some of the car categories, like separate the Group C's from the Group 1s, and maybe the FF cars in Group 4, things like that. Maybe something like giving us more options on how to tweak the AI in offline mode to try and race them. For example, being able to put them on soft or medium tyres rather than always being in hard tyres. But I really want to get more into depth in the kind of more significant things that I thought could be implemented that impact the game. So let me know what you think of my list. Let me know if you think you've got anything out there as well that you could maybe like to add in the comments. We're going to be back on Saturday with a Daily Race C race review from Dragon Trail Seaside in the Group 4 cars, so please do join me for that. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on the next one. Goodbye now.